ecological dynamics is mainly abductive, meaning that it is focused on the explanatory inferences about the sport phenomena. In short, we are more concerned with reality than with our constructions about reality. Rodney Brooks, a robotics engineer from MIT, once wrote, "The world is its best model, which is better than a programming the robot." It is a great pleasure to have Nelson Caldeira with us. Nelson is a soccer coach since 1994, and in the last 20 years, he has been coaching in several Premier Leagues from France, like Monaco, in Greece, Olympiacos, in Portugal, Marítimo, and Sporting Lisbon, participating in more than 100 matches in the UEFA's competitions, including 50 matches in the Champions. He is a full-time football coach, though. However, his practices are very much theoretical. He has been informed by the ecological dynamics framework for his practices since, take this note, 1993, when João Mateus, a teacher at the University of Madeira, revealed him ecological psychology and dynamical systems theory and applied these ideas to training theory and methods in his classes. Since then, Nelson has been deeply concerned on how training practices can be informed by ecological dynamics, as well as how ecological dynamics can also explore problems raised by the training that were never addressed by science before. In fact, he is now doing his PhD here in Lisbon, aiming to explore new theoretical regions that are very much present in his practice, such as the local and global representative design. This relationship between the local and the global led him to write a book about practice design informed by ecological dynamics. His book is the Futebol Global. It's in Portuguese, but it joins local and global in an approach that can be integrated, linking macro and micro scales. Nelson, it is really a pleasure to have you here with us. And I would like to start by asking you, can you tell us how you have been developing your expertise as a coach by being informed by ecological dynamics?
Hello, good morning. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And thank you also for the kind words. Yes, all of this was beginning in 1993 when I had the training methodology chair in my sports science degree with the professor João Mateus. He was my main influence to follow this ecological dynamic approach. At the time was nothing like the body of knowledge that we have today, but it was clear for me what is the right path to try to pursue in the practice. So 2 or 3 images remain already clear for me as a graduation student. The first of all is that the training needs to be ecological, as Professor Mateus usually say. What that means? Simply, we will train football playing football. We will not do physical training in the other non-related skills, exercises. We'll try to, as he usually said, we'll try to train a pianist to play playing piano and not running around the piano. That's the main idea. Remains clear for me since the beginning, and who are with me in all these years in the practice.
And can you tell us a little bit how this helps you to organize your practice sessions? How do you organize the projects that you have with the team when you start, and then how you manage your week? Can you give us an idea of how it is relevant for you?
Yes, I don't know exactly how we can do in other way, because we did like this since the beginning. So the constraints approach, the idea of constraint, the skill, the exercise, better saying the exercise to channel the adaptations for a reduction of degrees of freedom inside the team was something, as I said, since the beginning, we are trying to do that. What I mean is our approach is basically trying to don't atomize, don't separate the things, and keep the football as a whole. So we try to, of course, introduce our ideas, our game model ideas, how to defend, how to press, how to go for the transitions, etc. With also the idea of improving the physical conditioning, improving all the aspects of the performance, but from an integrated point of view. So because of that, it's not easy for me to explain what's the difference before and after the ecological dynamics insights that I received, because these are following me since the beginning. So what I can say, the idea of training in the edge of chaos is a powerful idea for us, maybe, because we are trying to don't control too much for example, the circulation of the ball paths. This is important, maybe an important insight, because we are believers of the emergence of the behaviors from the training, from the training the setting that and this, because of that for us the setting, the behavioral setting, as we usually say, is the most important focus in our job.
Very interesting. In fact, I will give the word to Pedro in a minute, but in fact, what we found in a recent study that we are writing now, we study Liverpool, the last 2 seasons of Liverpool, and we found that when they were playing with the same system, with the same positions of the players, the circulation of the ball was never the same. There was 90% of variability of the circulation of the ball. So this clearly illustrates what you are saying, in the same positions. And I also like to ask you if you can also say a little bit about this idea of representative design from a local and a global point of view. I think it's a very powerful idea that you brought from practice, and can you share it with us?
Yes, I will try. The main idea is we have, of course, a constraint, a powerful constraint from the coaching ideas, or from the head coach ideas. What is the game model? What is the game system? This will constrain all the, from a top-down perspective, all the behaviors, the players' behaviors. But from the other side, at the same time, we have the opposite influence. So we can say it's a bidirectional influence from the local adaptations, from the local and instant circumstances of that specific landscape in a single moment, to adapt more or less to the coaching ideas from the top down. So, of course, during a training exercise, we can have more from one side. We can have a stronger influence from top down, stronger influence, or the opposite. It's because of that, after maybe 10 years, we are we are trying to tag our exercises with a level of representativeness in the global and the local spheres. This is more clear in the practice, of course, but for example, it's very simple to understand from using the GPS data. For example, when you have the accelerations, decelerations, and all the effects from the local adaptations. But of course, you can have a more global approach in the same physical data. For example, in the all meters per minute you run simply. So at the same time, you can have, for example, an exercise who are very specific from a global point of view. For example, regarding the tactical mission of every player, and where the space around each player is more or less similar to the competition. And you can have, for example, a 3 against 3 exercise where you will not have, from a player point of view, references from the game system, but you still have the need to adapt to the distance for the teammates, the distance for opponents, to study from a local point of view, and to adapt to the affordances, for example, from the gaps to pass, and everyone in the center of the game, as we in Portugal we are used to say, the center of the game around the ball. So it's because of that, from my point of view, it makes sense to separate and integrate the global and the local. And this, because of that I usually call this kind of approach global approach.
Yeah, the funny point here is that for you it's much easier to explain it in practice, not in the theory. That is very great. Of course. Please, Pedro.
Okay, Nelson, I've several questions for you, but I will start with you are at the highest level of coaching in football, and I would like to know if this kind of approach is also usual to watch in your partners, in the other coaches. What is your feeling about? You don't know.
I don't know, really. I don't know.
It's something that I really would like to have some idea, because we talk about this. We know this kind of approach is really, really interesting for the developing of the sports as football or rugby or whatsoever. But I wonder, how many coaches used to work this way? You have no idea.
I have no idea. It's very interesting, because as a coaches, we are so focused in our team, how we will win. This is the main question. How we'll survive in this job? Because since the beginning, from my first season with the under 15 team of Nacional de Madeira, I felt a fantastic passion from this job, being coach. But at the same time, I realized there are so many people with the same passion as me. So to survive, the only way is to win. We don't have any another way. So I don't know exactly how the teams train. It's not important for me. The important is how the teams play. It's very important. And to analyze the teams, how is the philosophy of the coach. Of course, this is important, not from a training point of view, because the ecological dynamics, from my point of view, is very attached to the training moment, not it's not revealed by the competition.
Exactly.
And because of that, I cannot answer exactly this question.
So I have a second question for you, which I believe you can answer. What is the level of acceptance of the players concerning this kind of approach? I'm asking this because once I was talking with a friend of mine, which is a elite rugby coach, and he was invited and worked for several months with his national team, well, at the highest level of rugby coaching, and he said the challenge is that the players who are not used to work with me accept this kind of approach, because players, and we are talking about professional rugby players, some players want that I provide the solutions for the problems, and I don't work this way. I set the constraints and hope that the players find out the solutions for the problems that are posed by the defenders. So what about in football? Did the players accept well this kind of approach, and or they prefer that you provide the solutions?
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends essentially from the culture of the player.
Yeah.
What he is used to do in the recent past years. Yeah. This is the main constraint. So it's a cultural constraint that we need to deal with that also. We cannot implement a solution that will be rejected by the players. So as Professor Vitor Frade from the tactical periodization used to say, this is a little bit like coffee and milk. Okay, you need to find the right balance between the coffee and the milk. You cannot give only coffee if the player only wants to drink milk. So, but with the time you can mix a little bit of coffee. What I'm saying is, with the time, you can provide the solutions, for example, in the beginning, because you know that in that culture, specific culture, is what the player expects from you. But with the time, you can try to show how is important to the player decide by him in the real situation. And if he is expecting to me as a coach to provide all the solutions, I cannot give the solutions after a certain point. So usually after the players understand, and this is for example, the Portuguese players is very simple and is very accepted today. For other cultures, it's not easy in the beginning, but usually, if you show to the player the benefits of this approach from his perspective, that remains after a while a simple question.
So we can say that it is useful that if this kind of approach start being used when we coach the youth teams, not only the professionals or the expert teams. So ecological dynamics can be an approach used since the very beginning of the formation of a player. Do you agree with this, or yes, you think that this is mainly for the expert, for the professionals? I would like to hear your opinion regarding this.
I suppose this is approach useful for every kind of team. Regardless the level of competition. But of course, if a player during his path in the youth teams are used to, is something usual for him to decide by his head, with his perception, with the constraint from the coach being only a global thinking constraint. The coach doesn't decide by the player. This remains very simple to after in the high competition, in the high level, to work with these players. I must say, this is my opinion about the Portuguese contest, for example. Even the coaches don't realize they are following the ecological dynamics framework.
Yeah.
So many coaches are in the practice
working that way. Yeah.
Yes. And when you, for example, I remember when I received Bernardo Silva, for example, Ivan Cavaleiro from Benfica. I don't know exactly how Benfica works, but they are very skillful in the decision. They are very skillful in the perception. And of course, for us also as a coaches, it's very simple to speak, to talk with this kind of players, because you don't have to provoke I can say a break in the mindset of the player. So I suppose this is more and more popular in the football world.
Nice. Duarte, do we have some questions from the chat?
Yeah, before you please take a look at that, I would like just to take points of your discussion. I like very much that you said that even if you start by presenting solutions to the players, if they are used to and they are culturally dependent of that approach, then you show them that there are other means for them to become better. Can you tell us a little bit what you mean by showing them? You mean by verbalizing, or by what you are showing them they can do in the pitch?
Yes, especially in the pitch.
Very good.
Because the verbalization, for me, it's only necessary in two phases. One is to guide the intention, or as we say usually in the ecological dynamics, to educate the intention. That there, yes, it's necessary some verbalization, and after, to reinforce the perception and the cues that the player receives from the landscape, from the contest, from the game. So when I talk about this reinforcement, it's exactly that. Is, oh, you see how you did that, and this is very powerful. So many times is the moment when the player realizes what he did. He already did. So we don't have the need to exactly say it before the situation.
Yeah.
It's after this situation to reinforce the decision the player did.
Very interesting.
The player take.
Okay. Nelson, there is a very interesting question here from Jonas Pozilla in the chat. It says, what are the weaknesses or pitfalls that coaches need to avoid or be aware when using training methodologies derived from this theory?
Well, it's not easy to answer that question, because it's a very open question. I suppose we are already some guidelines from some coaches like me that are in the practice, but at the same time are following the theoretical advances and the papers and so on. For example, one that I like very much to read is Ben Bartlett from the Football Association, from the Britain Football Association Federation, and he has some principles to guide the coaches. For example, one is the 3R principles, saying that in the practice we need to relate the situation to be a situation, an ecological situation. We need to relate with the competition. Okay, we need to constraint the situation, and after we need to reward. These 3 R's are very easy to follow. For example, for a youth coach, I suppose it will work, and this will avoid a problem that for me it was at I need to say that in a moment of my career I did too much complexification, and this is a problem that I can say with experience you can avoid, or if you have this kind of the guidelines you can avoid. We don't need to complexificate too much to have a good results in the adaptation, in the player's adaptation. So this for me is the main risk. When the coach uses a language too much elaborated for the players. I don't know if I can explain myself. This is a real problem. When you have a real ecological dynamics approach, you are very simple in the way that you speak to the players and in the way that you present the exercises. But for my experience in the beginning, I had this problem. This problem. I remember that.
Well, I would take the chance to ask a question from Vitor Franco. He is also from Madeira, and probably you know him. And he asks, what are your thoughts about utilizing the experiential knowledge of experienced players in building the representative practice that you are presenting?
Yes, the knowledge came from everywhere. Not exactly from, or not exclusively from the books, from the papers and from the scientific knowledge. I remember the first years of my career, my mentors as a coach was okay. I had the chance to be assistant of Professor Nelo Vingada, who has the two sides. He was an ancient old player, and also he has an academic profile. But I had so many others like Manuel Cajuda, Anatoly Bichovets, coach from Russia and Ukraine, who passed to me so many insights, so many ideas about how to coach, how to design exercises, how to promote exactly that we are talking about, how to promote adaptations from a team point of view, not exactly to answer a purpose that you are putting in your head, but a purpose that you are trying to put in the heads of the players. So it's this kind of approach comes exactly from my mentors who are essentially former players. Don't came from the academic world. So for me, not only that, but when you are as a coach, I'm saying today, when you are talking with a player, okay, you transmit some ideas, but you receive also so many insights, so many feelings, so many ideas from the players. So of course, a player with 10, 15, 20 years of career, they have so many experience, so many insights, very useful for us as a coaches. When I had the opportunity, this is important to say, I have experience of 5, 6, 7 years as head coach in the professional teams, and my assistant coaches was also always former players. I had Mitchell van der Gaag, who starts with me as assistant coach. He played so many years at Marítimo, and after I had Carlos Jorge. He was a former player of Sporting Portugal and Marítimo also. So I honestly, I felt and I feel the need to have with me other regards, other views, other points of view to integrate in my decisions, because after the methodological decisions are need to be based in our knowledge about what works and what doesn't work. Okay, but to build this kind of decisions, you need knowledge, and knowledge, as I say, comes from everywhere.
Just to, before I pass it to Pedro, it's very interesting that you are saying that ecological dynamics helps you to be more in relation with reality and not to impose a theory to reality. So reality is your main guide, not theory. And I think that is a very powerful message that I think ecological dynamics fully advocates. Reality is your best guide.
Pedro, yes, because we are for the reality. Our job is very simple. We need to win a match. I am talking in the high level. We need to win. It's the only way to survive in this job. So if you are obsessed by the theoretical approach, by the theoretic concepts, you will not win.
Okay, we have a more technical question now from Alex Twitchen here in the chat. What kind of constraints do you employ to develop skilled movement of the ball? The individual awareness of space and positioning. So I think Alex wants to know, if you want to develop the movement of the ball, how can you, or what kind of constraints can we use? What do you suggest?
It depends. In these last 10, 15 years, I'm very focused in the team level, because usually the player arrives to us with a very high level, a very technical high level. So we don't need to focus in the relationship with the ball. For example, I don't know if this is the question, but during a time I worked as a technical director of the Academy of Marítimo, and I tried to implement also this approach in the youth categories, and there remains clear to me that we can use this approach. For example, in the relation with the ball. I mean, for example, because at the end, the quality of the player will be decisive to obtain a result, because only the quality of the touch on the ball can bring some control to the chaos of the game. So you need to invest so much time in this quality of the touch, to feel the ball, and there a series of exercises without explain too much how to put the foot, or to put the support foot or so on. We don't need, at my point of view, to do this kind of to pass this kind of information. If you simply put the player with a ball and introduce a constraint, for example, you need to follow a sequence of right foot, left foot, right knee, left knee in the juggle of the ball, is enough to introduce the feeling of the ball, or to provoke the adaptation of the feeling of the ball to the player. So I don't know if this is exactly the question, but the constraints could be used from an individual point of view, or from a group point of view. For example, if you put some space, some lines in the field to have space to be used, what we say between the lines, between the defensive and the midfield lines. You can put also this kind of lines to highlight this kind of space, this kind of gap. So it depends it depends on the level, the scale. If you want to individualize the problem, to put in a group scale or in the team scale, when you can introduce the same principles of, for example, building an exercise with spaces where only a player could be there. I don't know if I explain myself, but if you divide the field in squares, you can say only a player could be here in this square. Mm-hmm. You are not saying what is the player, if it's the forward or the winger. You don't have the need to say that, but this kind of constraints will highlight the attention and it will educate the intention and the attunement of the players and the team for the existence of these spaces, these gaps, and how to use after in the competition.
May I ask one last question? Eduardo, do we have time?
Go ahead, please, Pedro.
You talk that at your level of coaching, you need to win the game, period. That's all it matters. Yes. But what about the other? I perfectly understand. You are at the professional elite level, and it's true. But what about the other levels? What about the youth players? Because it seems that sometimes all the coaches feel that the most important thing is to win. And I'm not sure if I agree with that. I would like to hear your opinion.
Yes. I started as a youth coach in the under 15 team, but I replaced a coach who was sacked before me. So I understand since the beginning that even in the youth level, honestly, you need to win. Honestly, you need to win. After, the technical direction needs to, put some reflection around the victories and the defeats, putting some other parameters in the equation. But it's a matter of the responsibility of the technical directions and the club also policies. So from my point of view, you will need always to put the idea of winning in the minds of your players.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the sports and football, from my point of view, doesn't make sense.
Obviously.
Okay, but it's also, I understand that perfectly, a responsibility of the technical directions of the clubs to introduce some other parameters of what I could say, not only the absolute victories ratio, for example, but how your players, the players, from example, from the under 13 team or under 15 team are progressing in some parameters, and you can introduce that parameters to the equation. But at the end of the day, the main idea for the coaches is that you win. You need to win. The problem is only the scale, the time scale. If you want, you need to win immediately in the high level, or if you need to win in 10 years in the future, because you are preparing the players I'm saying in the academies, in the football academies. I'm not speaking about the amateur level when you are playing for pleasure, but in the academies, for example, you are preparing players to win in the future. So the winning is a matter of surviving in this job. It only depends on the time scale. It's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Nelson. Thank you.
It's important that we introduce that idea of time scale, because some relevant research, inclusively in football, from Arne Gulic, for example, shows that those that win more in the youth are not the ones who stay more time as a professionals. So the professionals don't win so much as their youth counterparts. They win less when they are in the youth phases, but then they stay more time as a professional. So it means that this idea of time scale, when they are ready to win, it's a very powerful message that you are offering us.
Absolutely, because this time scale also remain us for other question about what you should prioritize in every in each time age or team. For example, what the prioritization, as I usually say, the prioritization is essential, the main problem of the coaches. What you need to prioritize to win matches immediately in the high level, or what you need to prioritize in a specific group age. For example, what you need to prioritize in the under 10 years. It's always a matter of prioritization, not periodization, but essentially prioritization.
Priority, I think we can stay here for more 2 hours easily. There's lots of questions also going on. We cannot go into them by now. We will go in the future for sure. We will hope to have more sessions with you. Next week we will have here Jan Rencho from. He's in the last years he's been in New Zealand, and he's talking also about training methodologies and how this approach has been used in different sports. But before that, I would like to ask Pedro to mention some things about the Sports Science Congress, please.
Now, just to reinforce again that we do an extend deadline for abstract submissions. So now you can submit your abstracts for your short talks until June 13, okay? And we are looking forward to receive the abstract. And I think as the time goes on, the feeling that we will have a very interesting Congress is increasing with keynote speakers at top level like Keith David, Walter Herzog, Stephen Imsfeld, Ludovic Seifert, and also Anthony Blažević. So take a look at the webpage, and we are looking forward to receive your abstracts. Thank you. Nelson, once again, thank you very much for this chat. Very good.
Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
It was a pleasure, and I hope you have a very nice next season now that it was publicly announced that we'll be in Halali with Leonardo Jardim for the next season. Halilal. Yeah. Sorry, my Arabian is not so good. And I hope you the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.